I was a hospital administrator at a local hospital here in Cleveland, and doing very well and working my way up the ranks. Over a number of years, I was really inspired by the nurses and what they did. And they sort of struck me as the glue that held everything together. And I was always amazed by their acts of compassion, their efforts to educate our patients, their efforts to go the extra mile to get our patients the resources that they needed. So one evening on a whim, and this was 25 years ago, I applied to an evening weekend program here in Cleveland. And when I talk to students, I can really resonate with them because I remember the days of leaving the hospital and my office and driving across town, and sometimes even changing into my uniform in my car. So when students arrive and they're really stressed and they appear very rushed, I can relate to that. So I became a nurse, and in 2000, and 2 years almost to the day, I became a lab instructor at one of our local hospitals just to give it a try, and then eventually became a nurse manager. And as I was a nurse manager, so many schools brought clinical groups through my unit, and I developed some really great collaborative relationships with the nursing faculty as they were coming in. And one of them finally came to me and said, you know, look, I think this might be a good fit for you. Why don't you think about nursing education? And it took me a while, but eventually I took the plunge. And after I got my Master's of Science in Nursing, I decided to seek full-time employment as a nurse faculty, and then ultimately pursued my PhD in education with a concentration in nursing education. So in 2016, on a beautifully unseasonably warm fall day, I was in my garage and a 14-foot extension ladder collapsed. And I found myself going from really optimistic postdoctoral student to a broken and bleeding patient in literally 2 seconds. I had the chance to be the recipient of care from some of my former students, and some of them just wanted to come and check in with me and see how I was doing. And you know what an interesting experience that was, to see some of the people that I had educated in action, in uniform. But laying in that bed at that moment, I realized that I have to write a book about this. I had to write a book about my experience as the patient. And I said, this is an opportunity. You need to collect every sight, every sound, every experience, every smell, so that you can use this experience to educate people in the future, to share this experience. And so some of the concepts that I've brought to life in the classroom, like therapeutic communication, the stages of the nurse-patient relationship, how someone's locus of control can be so suddenly and traumatically externalized, and that loss of independence and autonomy. I was able to write about all of those things from an incredibly personal perspective. And the title of my book is 0 Days in Safety, One Nurse's Journey into Trauma and Recovery. So the subject of my doctoral work was identifying factors that promoted or detracted from the success of diverse groups of students, namely students who are men, students of color, and students with limited English proficiency. And in the book, there's a large section where I talk about being a patient on the inpatient trauma unit and how I was the recipient of care from people who fell into all of those groups. And I remember talking to them and encouraging them and asking them where they went to school. Some of them were nursing assistants and they were in school, and encouraging them to keep going and sharing tips with them. And it was really a great experience for me to see the work that I had been called to do, which is to help promote diversity in nursing, come to life right before me. Nursing is part of this grand divine team of people, and one other thing I do in the book is I celebrate some of the collegial friendships and relationships I've made. I also think that my own concept of caring really evolved as part of this experience, and I began to see that caring comes in many forms and from many people. And part of my mission now is to encourage nursing students to develop their own concept of care and to provide that care to diverse groups of patients no matter where they go.